Well, good afternoon, folks. Scott Henderson, shooter. And hey, we're going to run our town hall meeting this week, cover some names that we're in, some names that we'd like to be in, and of course, take any chart inquiries that y'all may have. Of course, at the end of the presentation, please do review our disclosures. Let's jump right into this. Okay, let's look at the NASDAQ. Now, earlier in chat, I posted a $74 put, $94 put on TQQQ. I'm thinking we get a decent pullback here. Just looking at the NASDAQ come down to the 4-hour. So, at this point, I'm only thinking we get down to about 571, so about $8 lower than we are. And when I look at the daily, there's a potential that we got a decent drawdown to this shelf. So it's a good spot to have a piece on. This is our mound structure 1. This is our mound structure 2. So we got peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2, peaking drive 3. Put in a little higher high above that buy stop. So all the structures there for that trade, ultimately. So looking at the TQQ, maybe a pullback to 75 is what Elliott Wave Absolute sees. Jumping over to the SPY, similar look, actually a cleaner target. Peaking drive 1, 2, 3. So, it's right at resistance versus where the NASDAQ actually could go just a little bit higher. Main reason I put that on, though, is I was thinking that we were running into resistance. So we still might push up to about 94 in the NASDAQ, but I think the S&P is pretty much done. We won't have confirmation of that breakdown until we get to about 643. And then this whole shelf is open down here. So let's jump over and look at the names for swing trade notes. Oracle, perfect hit. Wish I had a bigger piece on, but I absolutely blew out earnings. I just like cloud. Oracle, and truthfully, it wasn't as pumped. It hadn't run. RSI was in a good spot from where I looked at it. Ultimately, I didn't sell the cash secured puts. I probably wish I had because I'd had a bigger position on. But the 255 calls work. Not quite a 10x trade, but we'll take it. Next, let's jump over and look at Adobe. Now, Adobe is going to print tonight. I like the October 330 puts, the October 17, because it gives you a little more room. I don't think we take this out. We could. One of the hardest things in this is that there's a mixed bag with AI. If they're not monetizing it, or they're not able to grow their book of business like Oracle. Oracle went from an $18 billion projection for 2025 to 4 years out, they're projecting $144 billion. That's a pretty big moat. All you got to do is be on the right side of that trade. So, not that Adobe is ready yet. They've always been a leader in photography. I just like the thesis because it's sort of like my Walmart thesis. Nobody's going to come in and replace Walmart today. They just can't. They don't have the footprint. And one thing about Adobe is you got an expensive footprint in Illustrator and those other things. So it's not likely that they're going to replace it. The media solutions that are using it, it's like they want more AI features in the Adobe apps that are there because just the history that's there, I just don't see them losing that moat. So my thinking is that the January cash secured put volume, I moved 25 million, 75 million, 95 million, some large blocks, some sweeps that, just repetitive sweeps, or I think there were a total of 9 positions, implies to me that somebody knows something. And I would not be surprised if we get an announcement on this earnings that they have some kind of an AI moat that we might not otherwise know about. That's just my 2 cents. So I like the idea of getting a piece on for that. All right, looking at ENH, just building out this base. Maybe we get one more little flush. We could stay here for quite a little bit, really till November. So I don't think there's any rush unless we break above this. But you could buy some November $40 calls. I think it's a pretty good shot. I think it does keep going, pushing a little bit higher. And what I'm doing is I'm speaking about the worst case scenario as far as this look. Put your trend resistance on this 722 high and this 9,525 high, and that's where I would enter my call. All right, Cleveland Cliffs. I just think they recover here. I'm going to jump out to a larger chart here. I just want you to see what stage. Okay, we back tested here, $34. We're way the hell down here at 12. Excuse my friend. But corrective drive, peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2. Looks to me like it's done. until it proves otherwise, is my thinking. So I like this for a long as well. I'd rather get a little bit of a pullback, but you could do the October $12 calls right about where we are, or you could do the November $13 calls. Both are about $75 a contract. All right, let's look at BMR. Done nothing wrong still. I mean, drafted a little bit lower than I would have liked it to off of this pump, but hey, structurally, I'm looking at this peaking drive 1, so we're going to get a peaking drive 2 up here, peaking drive 3. So this is motive wave 1. This will be corrective wave 2. Then we'll get a 3, a 4, and a 5. Might be more of a flat, but I still think worst case scenario is we take out the 618. That's my 2 cents. All right, clean spark. It, again, has done nothing wrong. We're touching this base. The fact that it just tagged it and we came right off of it is good. This resistance, I'd expect a little bit of a back test, and then hopefully we get out. So I'm seeing this whole structure as mound 1, peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2, peaking drive 3. It's expanding in volume as it's going through it. So, that to me is what I see there. And roughly I've got a target of about 2070 on this on the larger picture. Got a lot of resistance overhead here. So I don't think we get above that, but I think this floor is in for the moment. Worst case scenario, we get a 3. Flush 1, 2, and maybe a 3 over here at around $5. I don't think that's the case. Looks to me more bullish. The cross here that we're getting right here looks to me like the bullish upside, like kind of here. See this? All right. It has a different look. That's my 2 cents. All right. URA. Now, uranium, I like it. Longer term play here. I mean, we're getting a little toppy. I would push up my trend support, your anchor, up to 39.03. Where we are. Just going to jump up here and look at UUU real quick. Where is it? It was a better play on the same time frame. It's just much bigger play, but still URI work. That's the basic thesis. All right, we want a piece of ONON back around $42 is where I like it. Let's look at 4. I want a piece on this back at about $68 is where I like it. GTC done nothing wrong. Anchors are 414 and 25.15. Still think it's going to head up to about that 36. Maybe a little more slow and lethargic after this push. But we could just take off 2 here. I mean, that's sort of the look. Now, OSCR, I drilled, I pulled back a little bit because of the resistance at, once I saw the on-balance volume. Top, tested it, rejected lower price. So I'd expect one more low. I like it back around $11.50, $12 right at that level, to get a piece on. All right, looking at Wolf, I'd expect a little back test. I'd run my anchor at the 57 cents and then the 991 takes out 50% of this candle. My target's way the heck up at 16.18 as far as the look on that. All right, Lilly. This is part of my AI mode. See, there are going to be certain names that do a lot of partnership, Eli Lilly being one of them. They invest in a lot of R&D. So they're going to benefit from AI. They are. That's all there's to it. Nice pullback. The only thing I would like different here would be not where this is my confirmed low, because we did have a confirmed, but we took it out here. So maybe we get one more divergent low. However, it's not a requirement on an uptrend. Quite often at the completion of mound 1, wave 2, you have no divergence. Okay. Quite often you get divergence in wave 4 on the corrective leg, not necessarily wave 2. So with that caveat, I'm looking at this more as a squeeze back to the upside. Elliott Wave Absolute takes us back up to about 1100. Okay. I've got the counts at 2. So I'm thinking worst case scenario, we get back up to about 839, maybe $1,033 from there. That's my 2 cents. Anchor is 623.78 and 693.37. BTU done nothing wrong. I'd give it a little bit of room because it might still need some time to digest that where we're at, but it's perfect 50% back. 618 is up at $22. The larger mound structure, which is this entire structure, measures to 29.71. Just a beautiful look. We had a good entry. Can't complain about it. So the anchors were the 80 cents and that 15.67. All right, now MRK back on that AI thesis within pharma. I like this where a pullback maybe at 80, just because how extended this flat was here, right? So we get a back test to that anchor, should give us a launching pad, maybe we get out, but ultimately I think a target around 112 right in that range is probably where we go. All right, Galaxy, we bought back our puts. Ultimately, I see this as a 5-wave down, leading diagonal, maybe down to around 21, so it's not been stopped based on the anchors yet. It's still there. I mean, I just closed it because I had a decent profit on it. So that was the reason I closed. Next. All right, Baba. Now, I want to pull back at least 50% of this leg here, right? The reason is I got to be greedy here because I still see the market is overbought. So I think there's, we want to buy at a discount. We want to sell at a premium. So I think back around 120 is a fair price for this. So that's my 2 cents and I'm sticking to it. Then, I like the idea of taking a shot on Baba. Now, K-Web and JD maybe. Right? Because I see this continued flow of money now going into China. However, the Trump tariff black swan event isn't passed, which is why I've avoided it. I don't want to get Trump. That's my 2 cents, so I'm going to add that with a caveat. If you don't need more risk on your plate, you're already struggling a little bit with your book, eating into your profits a little bit, I'm going to say this. Baba, if you're up 50% for the year, consider putting something on in Asia. If you're not, don't. All right, let's look at Hood. I want to pull back here, 80 bucks. I got it 80 bucks. This is Mound 1, peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2. We'll get a peaking drive 3 of a larger mound structure. So this pullback is significant for me as a launching pad because this is wave 3. So we're going to get wave 5, which should be shallower, but they tend to be broader. So when we get these dips, we'll get nice bounces, and those are nice, easy trades. And with a $20 range that I'm seeing, because basically if you go from this 123 down to the projected 50% back, 76. So we're talking, almost a $40 move, 30%, 35% move to the downside that we can catch back up to the upside. I like the idea. Team, no position size, done nothing wrong, still grinding out this base like I've said before. We could be in this unbalanced volume window for a bit. Anchors 139.23, 156.69. It's a good cash secured put candidate because it's held up really well. Nice relative strength. RSI is waning, but it's not dead. I mean, it's just basically in this range until it gets to a breakout, which is a great place to let premium decay. And you earn your premium in cash secured puts. 2 cents. Soundhound, trade's still intact. We got the 15s a little bit upside down on our common share purchase. I think it was 1443 on average, remember correctly. So just sitting here letting this play out. Really gone nowhere since we put that on. So the 93 anchor and 1180 if you're in calls or common shares. Otherwise, let the cash secured puts run. We'll figure out what to do with them after the fact. Grabbed, done nothing wrong. Right around $5. I mean, we were just dead on at that resistance. It was a perfect sell on those $5 covered calls. We're up like 35% on those at this point, and we're just decaying away through October. That's what we're doing. All right, let's look at Grab. Now this one was ONBS. It was much more euphoric than I anticipated. I thought we had some resistance here. So we have the $2 and the $3 cash secured puts sold on. I covered calls sold on this because we did buy the common shares around $2, 234, and got another average. I think it was at 256. So our cost basis is right around 235. So when you look at 100 plus per gain on principal and where you're sitting, it looks like it was a bad trade. But if you go back looking at the time we entered into this trade, market was toppy. We had some concerns about certain names. I was trying to pull yield in. It served its exact purpose to get a nice gain. The yield on those covered calls was nice. I mean, I can't complain about them. I wish I had done more than 1,000 shares on this thing. So that's my thought. All right, Big Sky. I like this, even though it's really taken out my stop. I do not have a position open on this. So I want a pullback in the general markets to add this, but I just like where Big Sky is. I like the thesis. I like what got this pump, peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2. So we're going to get a third peaking drive. I mean, maybe we get a shallow top at $24, but still we're at $15. I'm talking about a $7 move. I mean, can't complain about that. So I'm thinking worst case scenario, we get back up to that $20.74. So I'm going to wait till I get some kind of conviction here on the look before I add. And again, I want a little pullback in equities for that to manifest. Looking at Bitcoin's done nothing wrong. Peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2, peaking drive 3. So we could get a little bit of a pullback here. However, what I'm looking at is the expansion here. So peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2. I'm thinking we get a third one up here. Then I might take some profits, wait for the pullback. That's my thought because we're holding here. I mean, we're not doing anything wrong. On top of that, I think it was Beecham or Washington guy who's in charge of Bitcoin. It basically told the government you got 90 days to come up with your plan of how to reserve. So, all right, so let's look at some of the names you guys want me to look at. Start with Planet Lab. 1093, anchors 414 and 832. Done nothing wrong. Maybe get a little bit of a pullback. I'd only give it about 50% of that candle because you sort of have your general here, general 2, general 3, peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2, peaking drive 3. I wouldn't give it too much room. I like it for an entry back at $7. AUR, I like it for an entry right around $5. I like it for it to pull back. Peaking drive 1 or flushing drive 1, flushing drive 2. So maybe we get a 3 right here. That's sort of my thinking. All right, PDYN. It really has done nothing wrong. We've just expanded on this flag here, but I think it breaks. I think worst case scenario, we get back to $13. Maybe sitting on for a little while. I don't own it. I closed mine. So if you're holding it, I wouldn't hesitate to sell some covered calls on your position just to earn some revenue while we're sitting here, kind of thing. Oust. I like it back here at this about 1875. I like that pullback. I like that look with the shelf right where we are. Once we get that pullback, just doing a quick fib extension on that assumption, we'll be looking for a target maybe around 37 from here is where it should go once we get that pullback. So that should be our minimum target, be right there. That's my 2 cents. I'm sticking to it. Anchor would be, of course, you can use this anchor, but might as well step up. No reason. It works. Use the 4.7 low, and then whatever our low comes in here is your anchor once you put a piece back on there. Rocket Lab. Now, I don't like the downside look to this. It's looking to me like an impulse, not an ABC rate. Reason is because we didn't come off here. So, my thinking is this is an impulse down. Now, however, we close back above this 50.87, I'm wrong, and we're going to head up towards that 618 fib. Around $61. That's my thought. Just looks a little weaker than I would like structurally. Quick corrections, ABCs look like this. You get, even though it continued higher, it's flat, boom. See how quick this ABC is? Look at the difference in how we look here. So we have a clean ABC structure here. Really don't. We have more of an impulse leg to the downside, more to this kind of right here. See, so we got drive motive wave 1, motive wave or corrective leg 2, another motive wave 3, corrective leg 4 and 5. So it looks more to me like this is going to manifest. Be cautious. I would at least be selling covered calls. All right, Irene, beautiful look here. Has some room here. I've drawn my extension. 3 potentially could extend to about $38. Holds, done nothing wrong. I'd run a 513 on my anchor and 2540. Unity. Yeah, boy, I did my risk management. There were only so many positions I could trim. And when I'm over or my projected loss exceeds 20% of my gain, I just cut mode. What I can cut and not take the loss, I cut. So I was near marginal profit on this when I had the $30 calls, and I closed simply because of my risk management scheme that I have, and I actually regret it. In the grand scheme of things, either you're running risk management or you're not. So, and there's a reason why it's there. There's a reason why I'm consistently profitable in my trades, and I attribute that to my risk management, period. All right. I can pick the best trade. If I don't manage the trade correctly, it can turn into a loss. That's the whole thing. It's one reason I like my confirming trend support. So on Unity here, I'd use 1533 and 4087 at the current moment, right where we are. If it takes that out, let 50% get taken out. If it takes you out of your trailing stop on the other half, great. All right. Now, as an alternative, I know some of you guys like to use things on the chart a little differently. You can use the 8 and 21 day. So take half off at the 8 day, half off at the 21 day as far as the correction. I prefer to use the confirming trend support because it mimics what I see in motive waves. So I'm tracing the motive waves. I want to be out in the correct. That's just my thesis. IoT. Yeah, it's really hitting a little resistance here. Anchor is 32.97 and 35.44 here. It's done nothing wrong. Target's still up at 52. It's just running a little bit slower as far as getting started. AIRO needs a little time here. I'm looking at this peaking or flushing drive 1, 2. So maybe we get a 3 down here. Flushing drive 1, 2. Maybe we get a 3 here. This is a little too shallow time-wise. See the distance? Time and distance is a major factor in how waves play out. They tend to be equal. So equality is an important factor in analyzing a chart. That's my 2 cents. So I would rather buy this here in this range around 16 to 17 bucks. That's my two, right? Looking at Owens Corning, it's been a while since I looked at it, so I didn't even realize why it came out. I noticed that I didn't have an alert on it. I had mapped out a breakout here, which I've taken it off. Here, look at I have a trend line here for the breakout, and I didn't get the alert, or I didn't have it set or something, so I missed it. Okay, so I think we get a pullback here, maybe to 147. Then I'd like a shot long. But I don't think we have much room here. I think it rejects at 168 to the upside. That's my 2 cents. Celebrate. You know what they do? Nice come off the low. Nice clean buy stop out of the gap, right? Came in, tested the gap, right? Closed the gap, bounced, rejected, gave us a final flush. Beautiful look. Came back with some huge volume. This thing back test, maybe to 15 bucks. I'd like to add a piece long. I don't have a piece out long at the moment. So my thinking would be that fib's only really one way to measure. Either we're going to measure our 50% back rate on C, right? So 1772 would be the look, or we measure the cycle, the trough, the peak, and the trough of the whole leg. 2 ways to look at it. 618 in that case, which is actually very likely this look. Maybe 22 bucks to the upside. So it's got some nice upside. All right. That's my 2 cents. I'm sticking to it. TMO, kind of a broadening formation. So, I'd like this pullback to the base of the formation, roughly right here around 452. Then it's going to target the 618 around 525. BMY. This falls into my AI thesis with biopharma. I think they have I have a number of targets noted here based on whether it's this leg, whether it's this leg, or whether it's cycle, trough, peak, trough, etc. So, my challenging part is we've had the Mag 7 green on 3 separate days, right? But because we're toppy on the indices, I don't want to add positions unless I have some FOMO. FOMO meaning I get a final flush that reflects a divergent low. I get something like this. Yeah, I want to add here. That's my highest risk reward trade here, not here. All right. But I like the idea. You could sell 45 cash secured puts here and probably do nothing wrong. All right. Then until it breaks above, what is this? I'm just going to call this leg trend resistant, right? Kind of right here. So until it breaks above this 41.32, not really interested because this is kind of flushing drive 1. So we get a push. We probably get a flushing drive 2 here, maybe back down here. So or right, come down. Even though we've overshot it, there is a potential broadening formation down here, which pretty much down lower than that. So obviously, we get down to that 32 bucks. I get really excited about it. All right, quantum scope. Just rejected off of that push. To be honest with you, if you have it, close it. That would be my 2 cents. Or if you want to take the shot, it's probably going to recover. I just don't like how it rejected price. It looks too much like an ABC. Stocks are going to reject. We have the weakness in the market, right? So if we come down here and say, this is our A, this is our B. Where the hell does C go? Excuse my French. But it has a potential of going down to 250. It breaks below this low. It's definitely going down. It's going to test 250. That's what it's going to do if it breaks below there. So no reason to hold the risk. All right. ICUI, medical. Nice look. Nice back test. Fib measures off of there, 61.8 to a minimum of 135, which basically we're right there. Taking our first 50% back of our leg. 61.8 comes a little higher at 135.72. If we come in and measure the cycle, 61.8 comes in there around 157. It's very viable. As a stock rebuilds from a drawdown, levels are important. So knowing where your resistance is here. So we clear this, we're going up to here. So we got 20 bucks to the upside once this gets cleared. It looks like we're doing it. So I would suspect that we get some rejection here in the back test. And that back test is a good spot to enter. Because peaking drive 1, it'll be like peaking drive 2. It should go right to the top. If you look at the distance between this low and this low, distance, right? Similar distance. So the back test should come in around 139 from the third wave, and then put it at 4 and put it to 5. And then we're up here at the 618. Right there. All right, core weave. I see this as general 1 on the daily. So I think we get another one and another one. Just a beautiful look here. Don't have a position on it. If you have cash secured puts, I made note in chat that you could roll them up. I think it's actually kind of a good idea. All right, let's look at AST Space Mobile. Unfortunately, I think we have a little more downside here. It just looks to me like it's going to give this up. It's already broken below, just a wick below at 36.24. Right, so it's now testing this breakout right here. 35.44 gives that up. It's going down to the shelf, 28, 29 bucks. That's my 2 cents. However, gets back into this gap, I'm wrong, and it's done already. All right, let's take a look at Lent. Done nothing wrong. Coming out to the weekly on this one. So my anchors would be 11, 13, and 34.88. Done nothing wrong. Heading up towards this 1618 is what I think the target will be right up here, 56.2 cents. VSAT, done nothing wrong. Target up around 45. Anchors are 669 and 25.50. UNH. Now I think I said it at 304. Sell some cash geared put. Then it overshot me. A couple of you panicked. I should have added a piece. However, in my book, but I think our minimum target is going to be back up here at around 420. 50% back from this high to this low, right? I think the news of a 1,500% cut in pharmaceutical, pharma, is overdone because ultimately that's what dumped this, right? And, also thinking on the other side of the coin, I think they should be a benefactor because they're paying for the prescriptions. So why should they get it? So I think this is totally overdone. And I think, the Oracle of Omaha's investment was the sun, because I know there's quite a number of calls, a lot of blocks, a lot of. All right, let's look at critical metals. Done nothing wrong. I like a pullback to enter. It's not on my plate. So maybe right down around $5, 520 to shot. Look at this as drive one. So if we're going to put in a mound two kind of thing, so there should measure around 916. Should be the upside from there. And let's just see if we have any more questions before I close this. Well, I think that's about it. Great trading. Until next time.